My name is Emily Carter, and this is the story of how a few words I thought would protect my heart ended up breaking it instead. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, in a quiet neighborhood where everyone seemed to know each other. I wasn't the most popular girl in high school, but I had friends, dreams, and a family that loved me. Yet, the one person who became the center of my world was someone I never thought I would lose so completely. His name was Daniel Hayes. Daniel wasn't like the other boys. He wasn't loud, he wasn't trying to show off, and he wasn't chasing popularity. He was quiet, thoughtful, and always seemed to notice the little things that other people ignored. We met when I was 15 and he was 16 on the school bus. The bus was full, and the only open seat was next to him. He moved his backpack and gave me a small nod. That one small gesture was the beginning of something I never expected. Over time, we became friends. Not the kind of friends who just say hi in the hallway, but the kind of friends who shared secrets, fears, and dreams. He would walk me home after school, and I would help him study for math, which he hated. He loved art, and he once showed me a sketch he made of the Seattle skyline. I remember thinking it was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. High school passed, and while people came and went from my life, Daniel was always there. When I went through heartbreaks, he was the one who listened. When he lost his grandmother, I was the one who stayed up with him on the phone until he fell asleep. Slowly, my feelings started to change. What started as friendship grew into something deeper, but I was afraid to admit it, even to myself. By the time we reached college, we were inseparable. We both went to the University of Washington, though in different programs. I studied communications while he studied architecture. Our friends would often joke that we were practically a couple already. I laughed it off, but deep down, I felt the same. The problem was, I was scared. I had seen relationships fall apart, people hurt each other, and friendships destroyed, and I didn't want to risk losing him. One evening, during our sophomore year, Daniel and I were sitting in a small cafe near campus. He looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen before. "Emily," he said softly, "we've been friends for so long, but I need to be honest. I like you as more than a friend." My heart pounded in my chest. Part of me wanted to scream yes, to tell him I felt the same. But fear gripped me. Fear that if we tried and failed, I would lose him forever. So instead of speaking from my heart, I forced a smile and said words that would change everything. "Daniel, I think we should just be friends." I expected him to argue, to tell me he would wait, or to laugh it off. But he didn't. He nodded slowly, his jaw tightening just slightly. "Okay, Emily," he said. "If that's what you want." His voice was calm, almost too calm, and I remember feeling a strange chill in my chest. At first, nothing seemed to change. We still saw each other in class, still studied together, and still shared jokes. But over time, subtle shifts began. He stopped calling as much. Our late-night talks grew shorter. He started sitting with other people in the cafeteria. By the end of the semester, it was as if I was no longer part of his world. I tried to reach out. I texted, I called, but he rarely responded. Once, I saw him across campus laughing with a girl from his architecture class, and my stomach twisted. I realized then that he had taken my words literally. I said we should just be friends, but in his mind, that meant stepping away completely. Months turned into years. By the time we graduated, Daniel and I were strangers. I would hear updates about him through mutual friends. He had gotten an internship at a prestigious architecture firm in New York. He was thriving, chasing his dreams, while I was left wondering what could have been. I moved on, at least on the surface. I got a job at a marketing agency, dated a few people, and tried to convince myself that I was fine. But every now and then, late at night, I would think about him. I would remember his sketches, his laughter, the way he always knew when something was wrong with me. And I would regret the day I let fear guide my words. 3 years after graduation, fate decided to test me. I had to travel to New York City for work. My company was collaborating with an architectural firm on a campaign, and when I walked into the meeting room, my breath caught in my throat. There he was, Daniel Hayes. He looked older, more confident, but his eyes were the same. For a moment, our eyes met, and I felt a rush of emotions I had buried for years. But he only gave me a polite nod, as if I were just another colleague. The meeting went on, professional and distant. Afterward, I wanted to talk to him, to apologize, to explain. But he left quickly, and I couldn't find the courage to chase after him. Over the next few weeks, I saw him during the project. He was always professional, always polite, but never personal. It was as if we had never shared years of friendship. Finally, one evening after a long meeting, I gathered the courage to approach him. "Daniel," I said softly, "can we talk?" He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "About what?" "About us. About everything." He sighed and shook his head. "Emily, there is no us. Not anymore. You made it clear years ago." His words hit me like a punch to the chest. I was scared, I admitted, my voice trembling. I didn't want to lose you, and instead, I ended up losing you anyway. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then, with a gentleness that both comforted and shattered me, he said, "I cared about you more than anyone, Emily. But when you said you wanted to just be friends, I couldn't keep pretending. So I erased myself from your life, because that was the only way I could move on." Tears welled up in my eyes. Do you think we could ever start over?" He hesitated, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of the old Daniel in his eyes. But then he looked away. "I don't know," he said quietly. "Some things once broken can't go back to the way they were." That night, I walked back to my hotel with a heavy heart. I realized that sometimes the words we choose have consequences we can never undo. I had wanted to protect our friendship, but instead, I destroyed it. It has been years since that night, and I still think about him. Maybe in another life, we could have been more. Maybe in another time, I would have been braver. But in this life, Daniel Hayes is the boy who once meant everything to me, and the man who became a stranger because I was too afraid to love him. And that is my story. How I said we should just be friends, and how he took it literally, erasing me from his life forever.